Hey, Soul Sparklers, it's all happening.
With the soul sparkle, soul sparkle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul Sparkle Living Show. So glad to be joined this week by my dear friend, Mark Anastasi. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me, Hayley. Lovely to be here.
It's always a pleasure. We've been in each other's worlds for several years now, but we actually just met in real life a few weeks ago, which is always such a blessing, I think, when we've connected so beautifully online with people around the world. But then when the stars align and we can be in real life, that's my favorite. And so I'm so excited to spend more time with you.
Same here. And it's been wonderful to meet in person. For years, I've been talking about you to my clients, and I always found your work to be such an inspiration and such a wonderful example of living in this beautiful spiritual energy. And when we finally met, and with my wife, we just talked for hours, and it was clearly the right time to meet. And I love those serendipitous moments when it's clear that fate or destiny or the divine kind of brings people together.
Truly, truly. And even the story of how I ended up where I was kind of wild. And then you're like, I know exactly where you are. We'll come and visit you. And also what was so interesting and beautiful about that conversation is it was hours, but it felt like minutes, like time just stood still. We were like in this magic little portal, right? And I love when that happens and you just feel like you've known people forever. And that's when you know that you're meant to be in life together.
Yeah.
So
Of all the places you could have been, in the world, you happen to be staying in a place where my mother used to take us for holidays when we were young, a place that my wife has a very strong affinity for, even though she's not from this country. She feels that she had a past life in a specific area near Delphi in Greece, and you just happen to be staying there. And then the weird thing, you texted me one day saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm not there at the moment. I'm in Athens, in this small part of this small village, which just happens to be where I grew up. I grew up in that of all the places that from the United States, and living all over the world. Of course, you just happen to be in my holiday destination of my childhood and where I grew up during my childhood. So that tells me that's a little wink from the universe, a little hint that, hey, you're exactly where you're meant to be. This is all just fun and games.
it is truly. And I love that the idea of being exactly where you're meant to be, and it's always that way. And you mentioned the magic carpet ride that I said in the message yesterday. And I really, truly believe that we are divinely guided and inspired. And we get those moments of like, wait, there's something for me here. I need to stay for a little longer. And what happened is I was just supposed to travel through that town on the way to Delphi, to the Oracle at Delphi. And then I got this deep inspiration. I was like, I'm supposed to stay here for a little longer. And so I came back, and that 2 days turned into 40 days. And I just now made it to my next destination, which is it's such a fun way to do life. It's a little unsettling sometimes. You don't know exactly, but when we trust and surrender, we're always guided to exactly where we need to be. And I know that you and your family kind of lead that same energy. You follow where you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to meet along the way. It's beautiful.
I'm very blessed to be married to this wonderful woman, a wonderful wife, who is incredibly intuitive. And for many years, I was the left brain marketing guy, sales guy, business guy, sure, let's do what works. But Mira, my wife, definitely opened my eyes more and more, even though I had an awareness of spirituality. But being with her for almost 20 years, when you see again and again, how does she do it? She's almost always right. My wife has these incredible intuitive feelings, psychic feelings, premonition.
Yeah.
And she'll often tell me, no, don't do business with this person. Don't do it that way, or don't do that business. And I might, get upset for a little while because I've invested a lot of time or effort or hope even in some potential business dealing. But she's always right. And the few times that I went against it, I got to regret it, and I should have listened to it. And yes, so we do go through life very much as a couple, as a family, with following those intuitive indications from spirit, from the divine, even when they're not comfortable. And just this morning I was reading something about how stress in life, stress and difficulties often is there to because that's what you need on your path. That's what you need for your growth to get you to where you're supposed to be. And we fight against it. We don't like it, but you can just surrender to it and say, okay, this is what I need to be experiencing in my life. There's been moments in my life where I made millions of dollars, and there's been moments in my life where I was back down to nothing. And I viewed it very differently now. Okay, I needed to be earning those large amounts of money to learn how to manage those large amounts of money, but I also needed to learn to be with very little, because that's what I needed at that moment of my growth, of my journey, of my development. And yeah, it's a very different way of doing life than and typically where we struggle against everything that happens. So we get very elated about good things happening and very down or sad when bad things happen. All this to bring me back to the point you were saying that this magic carpet ride, and this is where it led us. Now in this year where we're meeting in these places, where it's bringing you to these countries, and it's fascinating to see where it's going to lead us next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you honor going back to listening to Mira and her guidance and her wisdom. That's the gift of the feminine, is that intuition, is that ability to maybe not be able to explain the why, but just like this deep knowing that it's not right or it is right, or, we need to go here and we need to go here this at this time. And I think it's really beautiful when the masculine honors that gift of the feminine and allows the intuition and that knowing to be like, okay, it doesn't maybe make sense to me, but I'm going to trust it and know that, like you said, she is almost every single time on it. Like, she's right. And when you can work together in that way, what a beautiful blessing to be able to have the covering almost of that spiritual wisdom and guidance. And then you can activate it in real life. It's just such a nice hybrid of being able to work together as a team that way. I think it's really beautiful. So beautiful.
We were just having this conversation this morning about what we want to do as a couple together and create this healing business, bringing lots of different healing modalities, different healers and healing courses together under a specific platform, our own platform, and how wonderful that will be for us to work together as a couple. But what Mira has really taught me over the years is to work with my feelings. I mean, what I mean working with my feelings, I mean that tuning in, sensing what I'm feeling on the inside, as opposed to being completely cerebral, which is what I've done my whole life. I've always liked learning and studying and reading a lot, but being more in touch with one's inner feelings. I'll speak to it a bit more specifically. So in this past year, I've gone through a course called 1111, The Divine Mindset. And it's been channeled, this 10-week program channeled from the divine by a friend of ours. His name is Glenn, an amazing spiritual channeler. Mira has known him for almost 30 years, or more than 30 years. Well, anyway, and 1111, The Divine Mindset, kind of helps you clear the gunk, heal from past trauma and all these kinds of things, but also reconnect more with the divine. So for example, in week 3, you sit in this park bench in this visualization in week 3, and you put your hand palm upwards, and the spirit guide sits next to you and puts his hand in your hand, and suddenly you start receiving these messages from the divine. And this isn't the only process. I've done some other work with cybernetic transposition, also kind of a similar thing where you are working with your feelings. Well, the point I'm making is that ever since doing 1111, I'm finding myself, and also being around Mira, and the more I'm with Mira, the more her gift kind of rubs off on me a little bit. But this situation I find myself in, where I might be in a meeting with some lawyers, for example, or with some business partners, and let's say a lawyer says something, and suddenly I have this row of spirit guides somewhere up here to the right of me. And they're just frowning. I'm seeing like a red light, and they're like arms crossed, and they're like, I get the sense that there's a row of them telling me no, or that's BS, that's not true. And then another lawyer pipes up and says, well, maybe you should explore this possibility and do it this way. And I'm seeing green lights and clapping and hooping and jumping up and down. And I'm getting, and those kinds of feelings I wouldn't be in tune with or in touch with in the past. Whereas it was just, like I said, thoughts, ideas, cerebral, you know, that.
Yeah, I love that. And now you've been able to access a whole nother level of guidance and wisdom that was always probably there available. It's just being open to it and tapping into the possibility. It's interesting that you mentioned that being in a room and listening. And I think we talked about this when I was on your Spiritual Codes of Wealth seminar workshop event. And it was when I was in my corporate job. This was probably 12 years ago, 12 or 13 now. And I would be in a room, like in a sales presentation, and I would be there as the subject matter expert for my part in the pitch. And I would be listening to everyone talking. And I started to realize that I knew what they were going to say before they said it. And then and it kind of freaked me out because I'd be like, well, I already knew. I had the words come in and then they would say the exact thing. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? That's so crazy. And the more I just was open to it, I got really good in those presentations because I was like, and I would even ask the guy, I'd be like, hey, I think we need to change what we're going to say because this is what they're thinking. And I already knew what it was. And it was so wild to me at the time. But the more I've opened to that, the more I'm just like, well, now it's just normal. But it makes it really obnoxious to like watch shows or movies because I already know what's coming and what they're going to say. And then they always say the exact thing. So anyway, back to the point is, I think it's fascinating that we do all have those gifts. It's just a matter of learning how to access them and then being open to the messages. And then obviously you decide, do you go with the one that's a yes or a no? And you have the free will to choose. But what a blessing to be truly divinely guided in a way that allows you to what I term, stay in alignment or on the highest timeline, the highest path, and make sure that you're making decisions and choices that are going to lead you to exactly where Spirit, God, Divine wants you to be. So beautiful. I love that you're on that class, and I love that it's 11/11 when we're recording this today. So fun.
We're recording on the 11th of the 11th, indeed. And just a few minutes ago was 11/11 on the 11th of the
Love
11th.
it. I love it.
It is a different way of doing life. And I know because I did it both ways. I've been a businessman just on let's use the brain power, mind power. Let's force. Literally, I'm going to work 17, 18 hours a day. I'm going to bulldoze my way to success. And that's fine. And it worked, but at great expense. It was incredibly stressful, was burnout on all levels, health, relationships, everything. And this is different, tuning into your intuition, to your feelings. By the way, when I was doing 11/11 earlier this year, so I realized that I'd been beating myself up because I built a very lucrative business. I built up a certain level of success and wealth. And I found myself, after a few years, I'd lost everything. And I was beating myself up about this, especially having a young family and kids to raise and all of that. And I'm there sitting on this bench in week 3 of 11/11, put my hand up. And one of the messages I received, I wrote down like 2 pages in my journal of different messages I received during this 10-week course from the divine. But one of the messages I got was, Mark, you didn't do this. You didn't lose all of that abundance and success and all that. We did this. The answer I was getting from the divine is, we did this. We did this because your soul needed to be elevated and purified, Mark. And we did this for your sake, for your wife's sake, even for your children's sake, so they don't grow up spoiled, for example, is one of the messages. And just as there was this message about how you dealt with these struggles and difficulties with grace and honor and elegance, or something to that effect. You did well. We're proud of you. You through the struggle, you did well. But we were there the whole time, making sure that you're okay, even though it felt difficult. It was tough and all these things. And then the next message was very weird. The next message was, just as you thought, Mark, that this lack and scarcity and not having the abundance or the having the money, that was a test for you. Yes, it was a test for you that we did for you, that we created for you. This was a test for you. But the large amounts of money are also a test for you. And make sure to deal with that test when the time comes with generosity, honor, integrity, kindness, compassion, etc., etc. We think of abundance or lack as success or failure, or looking at it as a destination, success being a destination. The truth is, in my life experience, is that all of it is success. All of it is part of our journey. All of it is part of our learning, and that is the real wealth, the real growth. It's how our consciousness evolves through those experiences, whether it's wealth or lack or anywhere in between. I'm saying this as somebody who, for many years, I've been fascinated about abundance and wealth. I mean, most of my books are around that topic. It's not about health or happiness or something else. But and that's been because in our childhood, my father lost his job in 1990. We struggled in, there were literally many days we didn't have two pennies to rub together as a family of five. That made me very focused on this topic, which is why I'm coming back to that topic from time to time. And you kindly spoke at my summit, the Spiritual Codes of Wealth Summit, which was an event about where spirituality and abundance, spirituality and wealth kind of intersect and meet. This gentleman who channeled 1111, the divine mindset, he was chiding me often for my beliefs around abundance and money. And he would say, abundance, Mark, abundance comes from God. And at the time when he first told me that, I didn't understand it, because in my mind, it's like, no, you work hard and you sell and you just, left brain, male energy, making it kind of thing. And he would say, abundance comes from God. And it took me a while to understand that concept, that idea. And, is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. But abundance, what an interesting concept, that abundance comes from the divine, is given to us when it's the right time, when we're living according to certain spiritual laws. As I'm evolving and growing in this life, more and more, I'm moving in that direction, Hayley, understanding that abundance is something, there's a very strong spiritual dimension to that.
And you're sharing that wisdom with the masses. Like, that, I think, is such a beautiful way of taking what was maybe messy for you in the beginning, right? You've turned it into the kind of the merging of both of those worlds in a beautiful way, because I think a lot of people do live their whole life on that left side, in that masculine energy and that go and that hustle and get it done and make more so you can buy more, not make more so you can give more or do more good work in the world or share more, And I think that's a beautiful
Well, yeah, well, I'll tell you, for me, it wasn't to make more, to have more, buy more. I never really cared about buying stuff.
Yeah.
It was that our childhood was so insecure. Parents separated when I was 7, but they still lived together, fighting every day of their lives, crying, just fighting constantly, and struggle, lack, not enough money for groceries. And so in my mind, I thought, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll make millions of pounds or dollars or euros. I'll get very rich, and then I'll feel secure. Well, I made the money very fast in my 20s. And here was a surprising outcome for me. I did not feel secure. I did not feel secure. I started feeling, oh my God, what if I lose this? It actually made me feel less secure. And the bizarre thing is that when I did lose everything, perhaps unsurprisingly, it was a spiritual understanding, a spiritual discovery, spiritual awareness of, hey, wow, God has my back. The divine has my back. I'm taken care of no matter what. Even when suddenly we have nothing, wow, 20 euros comes in, or 100 euros, or 5,000 comes in. And it's just exactly what we need at that time to just get by. Miracles, a series of miracles. And I realized, if I feel divinely blessed and divinely taken care of, or God has my back, that concept, that is all the security I need. And when I felt secure within myself and in life, more safe, that's when that was projected outwardly, and suddenly large amounts of money started coming in again. And it's yes, some people want to make a lot of money to be seen or to be recognized or to feel like they're better than or enough. But also a lot of people, it's to feel that sense of security. But again, all of those things are illusions. It's not because you have more money that not necessarily anyway, that you'll feel more secure. But again, everything keeps pointing us towards the idea that there is something divine. There is a spiritual dimension to life. And I know in my circle of friends, our acquaintances, the people we grew up with, many of them, if not most of them, don't believe in anything spiritual. They don't believe in anything esoteric, or, I mean, if it's not on television, if it's not on CNN or BBC, it just does not exist. And if we try and tell them about alternative medicine or maybe something spiritual, or maybe something slightly alternative, they're completely closed to it. All of this is said that walking with the divine on this beautiful magic carpet ride that is life, as you describe it, I love that term. It just makes life so much more beautiful and magical. I love this title of one of your talks, How to Create a Magical Life. I've written it down years ago, years and years ago. I wrote down this title that I saw on your website, How to Create a Magical Life. And I thought one day I'd love to give a talk about how to create a magical life. But I'll have to ask Hayley if it's okay to use that title because it's such a great title. And um, yeah, how to create a magical life. And I think that working with the divine, living with the divine, I mean, walking with the divine in life, that's what I mean, is that's really what creates a magical life.
Truly, truly. And also believing that it's possible. I think a lot of people are so in their paradigm, in their box, right? In their normal day to day, and they do the same thing every day. And it's never a space of like wonder and whimsy and what's possible. And, for me, I just decided that if I chose it, then I could have that experience. And so now it's just become kind of a way of life for me. And you have to be brave. I mean, it's not easy sometimes, right? To say yes to opportunities before you really know what you're getting yourself into, or booking the flight and not really knowing what's going to be happening on the other side. But just knowing, when you trust that intuition, when you trust those knowings. Like I said, just before we met in real life, I didn't know where I was going to stay the next day. Like, I put my clients on a plane and I wasn't sure what the next step was, and I couldn't get clear. And usually I have a little visibility, like a day or two, a week or two, sometimes a month. It used to be longer. Now that window is closing a little tighter, but I really didn't know. And I just knew that when I went through that little town where we met, there was something there. And I'm like, I need to get off this bus. I need to be here. I don't know why, but I need to be here for a period of time. And like I said, I only booked 2 nights. That turned into 5, which then turned into 40. So you just never know what the thing is. But when you believe in magic and you believe in the possibility of it, you just trust that whoever you need to meet, whatever experiences you need to have, whatever teaching or initiation. I mean, I think I've learned so much in the last 40 days. It's been amazing that I wasn't expecting and I didn't realize that I even needed. So I think that is the foundational elements of, for me, creating a magical life. It's being open to the possibility, saying yes to the experiences, and being open to whatever you learn and whatever the outcome is. And then knowing when you're ready to go to the next chapter of magic, which I just started today, really, which is perfect on this 11th. So it's a fun game. It's a fun experience to have when you just trust that, like you said, you're being divinely guided, and you know that you know that you know that wherever you're meant to be, whoever you're meant to meet, whatever you're meant to experience is the exact thing that your soul needs at that time. And then when you are ready for the next thing, when God says move, you move. And so that's what I do. That's all. Easy, sort of.
Wonderful. One of the things I have learned this year is the importance of removing the gunk from our field. And I thought, all in my 20s, I did a lot of NLP work, a lot of Tony Robbins, your linguistic programming work. I identified my limiting beliefs, eliminated them. Great. They're out of my brain. Limiting beliefs about success, about myself, about money. Okay, I did that. But I realized there was deeper gunk, traumas from my childhood, emotional, sadness, moments from my childhood that were still there. And when you do that work, when you remove that gunk, the understanding I have now is that there isn't that interference in your signal. There isn't that gunk that might interfere with connecting with the divine, with receiving these messages. Things like feeling not good enough, trauma, abandonment issues, regret, guilt, shame, sadness, all of these kinds of issues that maybe I'll speak for myself, that I was definitely carrying from my childhood. I cleared things on the mental side, the limiting belief side, but there was a deeper level on a emotional and subconscious level. And that when I cleared that allowed me a different kind of connection. Even though there were moments in the past when I was still in my very left brain male kind of energy, where I did receive some messages from the divine. I remember when I was 17 years old, I had this intuition one day to walk into a betting shop in Greece and do this. If you guess the outcomes of 13 football games in the Greek league, you could win some money basically. And for some reason, I'd never done this before. I never did it since. But I walked in there and I played that game, and I won. I guessed all of the 13 things right, and I earned £6,000, which as a 17-year-old back in the day was a lot of money. Another time, I remember being at a bookstore in Stansted Airport in the UK, and I'm just looking to buy a book before getting onto a flight, and I'm looking at some books down there, and suddenly my right hand flies up, and when I turn to my hand, I'm holding the Celestine Prophecy in my hand.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just a weird thing. I'm looking at books down there, and suddenly I'm holding the Celestine Prophecy book. And the Celestine Prophecy says the first part of the spiritual evolution is when you notice signs, when you notice little signs, little coincidences that we know are not coincidences, kind of thing. And that kind of got me started. Or another time, I'm traveling back from our honeymoon with my wife, and we're at the airport in Slovakia. We just flew back from the Maldives. We're taking a taxi home. And the taxi driver kept looking back at my wife and speaking to her very loudly in Slovak. And I'm having this message come to me: tell this guy to shut the F up and look at the road. I don't speak Slovak. I'm polite. I don't say anything. I get the message again: tell this effing guy to shut the F up, etc., etc. No, I still don't say anything. And then after a few minutes, I get this feeling like somebody's going, huh, okay, brace position. Take the brace position. I'm like, brace position, like in a flight? I'm not going to say, no, my wife is still talking to him. It'll be ridiculous if I curl up in a ball at the bottom of the back seat of the taxi. No, I ignored it for a third time. A few minutes later, like 2 minutes from our house, he goes at maybe 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour at least, into a wild boar the size of a small tank, completely wrecks his taxi. We're like pinball balls in the back seat, which is bouncing around the back of the seat, destroys the animal. Bless it. And the point I'm making is that in my life, I've had these moments. One other time was I was driving at night in Cyprus to our home in Cyprus, and you drive on the left-hand side in Cyprus. But many tourists, they arrive, they're tired at night, they get into their hired car the next day, they forget that they're supposed to be driving on the left-hand side. So the next morning they're driving on the right-hand side. And I'm driving up this hill around a corner. It's a mountain, so you don't have any visibility. And I get this message in my head: slow down. And just enough for me to lift my foot from the accelerator, just a fraction of a second, lift it just in time to avoid a speeding car coming right at me, and I have time to just turn to the right to avoid a head-on collision. And I mean, this was before I really got into any of this. But what I'm saying is that there are these moments in life where even when you're completely in your head, um, you get these moments, these intuitive moments. And now I'm more aware of it, so I can use it in business meetings or business decisions or life decisions. And it's so much more. There's so much more ease and fun in life, less stress when you work with the flow of life rather than against it.
Right. And I think what's beautiful too is the revelation and the recognition that you're never really alone. You're never alone. You're always guided, always in all the ways. And I think so many people struggle with loneliness and isolation and feeling like they're on their own all the time. In those moments when you get those messages, it's like, tell them to watch the road. Brace yourself. Something's coming, slow down. Those are all ways of that our spiritual support team, for other words, like that's what I call them, is that they are always trying to protect you. They're always with you. And especially when you open up to it and you can even ask, like when I get on a flight, I just am like, okay, I call forth the hedge of protection. Like I want all the angels, like legion of angels, just fly with us on this trip. Let it be easy. Let us be guided and with grace. Like there's ways to even activate that in your life that a lot of people don't realize is possible. Right. And we have those guides and angels for all the different areas, for our health, for our wealth, for our love lives, for all of those things. And if we just call them forward, they're just hanging out waiting for us to ask. And so I love that you've really made that such a part of your life and your knowing, and that you listen to them and you listen and you listen.
We set an intention. before any travel or trip, I write down, I literally take the time to sit down with my journal and I write down an intention. We just traveled by car 3,600 kilometers the past 10 days. And I set an intention. This is how I want our travel to be. This is how we want the journey to turn out. This is how we want to experience things, and it's very, very powerful. Because usually we get at least 80 or 90% of the things that we set our intention on exactly as we want, including when we travel. Like you said, I visualize these warrior-like spirit guides. They're spiritual, but they're powerful. You know, no nonsense spirit guides who are shoulder to shoulder all around our property that we've just left, all around our property, guarding our property. And when we sleep, guarding it, they're not letting anything or anyone interfere with our home. Same thing with our car. They are around our car the whole time that we're traveling 1,800 kilometers in one direction, 800 kilometers back. They are surrounding the car like an invisible force field, you know, looking after us. And I mean, it doesn't really cost you anything to do that. You know, use it because, well, we know it works. So why not try it?
Why not try it? And I think it's so cool to see how, you know, the difference between when you feel like you're doing everything on your own versus when you're being guided, right? And so going back to this one example back in Arakova, it's like, but I should know, like, I need to book something. I was so in my head about it because I was like, but I don't have anywhere to stay. Like, I need to book a flight or I need to book a hotel. I need to do something. I need to do something. And as soon as I was like, or you just let it unfold and you just take one day at a time. I mean, it was such a different way of surrendering and trusting. Normally, I'm like, well, at least I know a few days, but it was really uncomfortable. And like, well, I've got to pack my stuff. Where am I going to take it? Like, where am I going to go now? I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to get on a train and I'm going to go to this town and then I'm going to see what happens. And then a whole slew of magical things unfolded, right? And so it's just such a reminder that when we do allow ourselves to be divinely guided, we always end up, again, like I said, always end up exactly where we need to be. And we're always protected. We're always protected if we pay attention. And like you said, set the intention. I love that you kind of create this bubble of, you know, of your angels and guides. Like, okay, here we go. Hold the house stable and steady, protect it, hold my family on the way. And I think what's beautiful as the leader of your family, to be able to really lean into, you don't have to do it by yourself, Mark. Men do not have to hold that all alone. You can call on all of the guides and angels to come and support, and you anchor it in and you set the intention and you hold the container of the safety for your family, but you know that you're not doing it just by yourself. I think that's really beautiful as well. And that's a different level of strength, I think, as the masculine, to know that.
This
And
is
that
something I've always admired of women, is that you have typically a support structure. Women talk to each other, talk with women. Us guys almost never do. It's very much a John Wayne, out on our own. You know, you make it happen or not, but you never speak about what's going on with your male friends. And I think there's a space for that. I think there's a space for masterminds or circles of men. We should definitely be helping each other more. But going back to what you're saying about how it's wonderful that we are protected, that we are taken care of, that the divine takes care of us, takes care of us. So one of the exercises that I did recently in this 11 program. I should point out that I've been asked to be a spokesperson for it, but genuinely, I love talking about it anyway. So in week 5 of it, you enter this room, this visualization, and there's 4 doors: the door of the past, present, door of the future, and the door of faith. I'll put it this way. I'll say it's past, present, future, and faith, right? And you're sitting there and you're blasting energy, this divine energy that's flowing through the room, around the room, and through you, and you're blasting it into the doors of the past and of the future. Okay, you blast them shut. Just blast them shut. You've already done a lot of work in week 1 and week 2 to clear the past and clear all these the gunk from the past and all that. You've healed a lot. Now in week 5, you're shutting down the door of the past and of the future, and you're blasting this divine love energy into the door of the present and faith, so that you can be in the present moment with faith. And it's a weird thing that ever since I did that exercise in week 5, that I could do my meditation properly. I could be in the present moment. Because for years, we read about spirituality. We understand, the power of now and living in the now, and you've got to live in the now and all these kinds of things. But I couldn't because my mind, even though I intellectually understood the value of being in the now, I couldn't because I was constantly worrying about what I need to do in a few hours or tomorrow. What am I going to do this week, etc., etc. But I did this exercise, this week 5, and I found myself being able to be present, being able to meditate because I felt inside of me that tomorrow was already taken care of. The day after that, I didn't need to worry about it. It was already taken care of by the divine, by
Mhm.
something divine, by something spiritual. And that was a big transformation for me to just be able to be present because I knew God has my back.
It's so good just to have that peace and that knowing. And I actually feel like one of the greatest gifts we can give to ourselves and each other is to just be here right now, just right here, right now. We don't have to map out the next chapter, the next, years or whatever. It's just being able to be right here with the people that you love and be in that energy of presence. And I think that's such a good lesson because we're always taught set goals, plan for the future, da 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 da. And I think a lot of times we miss what's right here in front of us because we're constantly thinking about how is this going to turn out? How is this relationship going to go? What's the next business thing I need to do? Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? The next thing. And I think I've also had that kind of experience here recently of what if I could just love as much as I can right here, right now, in this moment? And I don't have to know the next thing. What if I can just pour my love and energy into this time, into this space, into these people, into these conversations that I'm having without an expectation or an attachment to the outcome? Because I think that's where we create suffering is when we try to attach to an outcome of a thing and have an expectation of, well, it's supposed to be like this. And then if it doesn't turn out like that, we think, well, maybe it wasn't the right thing, or maybe it was exactly the right thing. And it just needed to be these precious little moments. And we go from one moment to the next moment. And that's just a different way of doing life. And I think it's really beautiful, really beautiful. So good.
That is such a lovely idea you just expressed there, Haley. How can I just be as loving as possible in this moment, in this place, in this day, without attachment to the outcome? Because I must say, I'm not quite there yet. In that, I'm still very much attached to outcomes, business outcomes, financial outcomes, things of that nature. I'm releasing it more and more, but still not quite there. What a lovely idea. How can I just be as loving as possible in this moment? And my wife is totally there. Like just this morning, we were talking about creating this healing business, and it's a long term thing. And I'm like, okay, great, yes, and we can monetize it like this, like this, like this. Immediately, I was into okay, what are the monetization ideas? What's the business plan for it? She said, no, no, no. We'll build it slowly, long term, and whatever's meant to be will be, and that's great. And she says it will be mission driven, and that's great because then it doesn't need to be about the business side, the money side, the financial considerations of it. No, it can just be an act of love. It can be us pouring our love and desire to help people heal into this vehicle, into this platform, this business, and then the rest will take care of itself. And usually it works better this way. When I started out in business, I was really struggling, and but I decided one day, okay, let me just help 1,000 people. Let me publish this ebook online. And if I can help just 1,000 people, then only good things can come from it. And I did that because I really wanted to help 1,000 people. And within 2 years, I'd sold 40,000 copies of the book, and I was off to the races in terms of my business. But it seems to be that when you do things from a place of heart, of love, of benevolence, that those ventures tend to thrive, and often in unexpected ways, much more than if you just focus on the what's in it for me aspect of it.
Always, always. And I also think it's so much more rewarding and fulfilling when you come from that place of service versus again, I need it to reach this many people or make this amount of money or whatever it needs to be. It's like it allows the flow and I guess again, the magic to reach who it needs to reach at the appointed time, you know?
Mm.
And I think that's where the beauty of what you've created with this hybrid now of this, all of this information, all of this wisdom from wealth creation. And now all of this wisdom for how to blend that with this spiritual aspect, I think is just such a beautiful gift. And I think more and more people are opening up their heart and their mind to just different ways of being, different ways of living, different ways of loving and serving. And I think it's really lovely how you have brought all of that to the forefront. I would love for you to, Mark, before we close out today, share what would be ways that people can connect with you. Obviously, we're going to share your links to your website and things that you shared in the show notes, but what else would be in the highest and best for those that are listening in a way to connect with you, follow you, be part of your world?
Great. My website, mark-anastasi.com, is one way. I don't really have a presence on social media these days. I will eventually, but spiritualcodesofwealth.com. So spiritualcodesofwealth.com is a great way to connect. We've interviewed 40 wonderful speakers and experts, yourself included, about spirituality and where that meets with abundance and success. And I highly recommend for people to check that out. I had so many awakenings, so many new awarenesses, if that's a term. It just raised my awareness about so many things, listening to those 40 speakers talk about spirituality and abundance. So that's Spiritual Codes of Wealth. And I have a number of books on Amazon as well. And yeah, for the time, we were also giving away 15 of my books and ebooks. I think I've sent you a link for that. And I think that's a great place to start.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time always. It's always a
Let's
pleasure.
say,
It goes by so fast. Thank you.
I just want to say one last thing, because I wanted to touch upon this point. The idea of ask and it is given. You mentioned about how wonderful it is to know we're never alone and we're guided and we're taken care of by God, by the divine. And to me, that ties into the idea of ask and it is given. Ask. Most people are too afraid, or they don't know, or they're unsure, but we can ask. We can ask for things we desire. We can ask for more wisdom. We can ask for opportunity. We can ask for ideas. And I'm a firm believer in the idea of asking it is given. And it's not always given to us in the way exactly as we expect it or in the timing that we expect it in. But if you ask for more abundance, you might receive the right circumstances to gain the wisdom you need, or the people you need, or the learnings, the teachings, the resources for you to create more abundance for yourself and for others. Ask and it is given. If you need healing as well, maybe the right people will show up to help you along that path of healing, or relationships. Ask and it is given. Years ago, 2006, I wrote down exactly my intention of how I wanted my future partner to be. And I met Mira in 2009. She was exactly what I had listed, and much, much more besides. And we live in this beautiful world, in this beautiful dimension where we're taken care of, we are guided, and there's this spiritual law of the universe, spiritual law that says, ask and it is given. And I constantly marvel at that. We have incredible power and abundance and wealth at our fingertips if we just take the time to learn these wonderful secrets that you share, by the way, on your show, and all the work that you do, and your wonderful retreats as well. People can create a magical life by learning these insights.
I love it. And I love having you and Mira on my magic carpet ride as well. So hopefully I'll be able to have her on the show here soon. And you know what would be also fun that we might think about is having both of you and do that kind of combination. That would be lovely. That would be a great conversation as well. So
I can't wait for people to hear Mira, and I'll do a little plug for my wife. I'll advertise her in this way by saying, usually I tell people, it's my wife. This is Mira. She sees dead people. That's how I like to tease her, that she has this ability to converse the souls of spirit babies around women, and she converses with them sometimes. So I'm sure that the show that you'll have with her will be very, very interesting for that reason, for many other reasons.
absolutely. I can't wait. Thank you again so much for your time and for your energy and the love and the work that you do in the world. It's such a blessing now to not only know you virtually, but also in real life as well. And hopefully we'll be able to reconnect somewhere in the world, either here, maybe where I am now, or back in Greece. We'll see, but somewhere soon would be wonderful. So thank you again. Thank you everyone for tuning in this week. And we can't wait to see you on the next episode, of the Soul Sparkle Living Show.
So sparkle with the soul sparkle.